Hello, welcome to another edition of Awkward Teenage Years. It's been a while since I've been the host of this show. I think it's been like 4 months or something. I don't know. It's a special occasion. I'm feeling pretty psyched about it today, guys. I put on real pants, not sweatpants, not gym shorts, like actual jeans, because I'm feeling fancy because I'm so excited for tonight. I know you're not even going to see the jeans because this is Zoom, but just know that I'm wearing them for you. If you've never seen our show before, my name is Will Clegg. I'm one of the co-creators of this show, and it's a storytelling show where we're going to have five folks come on and tell true stories about their gloriously awkward teenage years, just like the show title implies. And I'm just going to quickly show you all their smiling faces here. There they are. Everybody say hello. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Our first storyteller tonight is our first returning guest on the show. We've been doing this for almost a year now, and this is our first guest that we've brought back. She is a storyteller. She's based in the Marina neighborhood of San Francisco. Her name is also Marina Petrova. She recently moved into her very own apartment, which she says makes her a real adult, although I think maybe she's been a real adult for quite some time. She and I took storytelling classes together with Adam Wade at the Magnet Theater a couple of years ago, and I'm super excited to bring her back to our show. So please give a warm digital welcome to Marina Petrova.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. Hi, everybody. I grew up in Russia in a mid-sized city about 300 miles south of Moscow. And I was a very, very nerdy kid. I was studying really hard to earn those A grades as if my life depended on it. And as often happens to the nerdy children, I was also a very, very shy kid. I was attending two separate schools. One school was a regular school, and the additional school was a music school. Because in Russia in the 1990s, if you wanted to learn an art or learn how to play an instrument, the only option to do so was to sign up to a rigorous 5 or 7 year long program at a separate institution. At the music school, I was an average student because I didn't have any special talents. I didn't want to be a professional musician. The only thing I cared about were my grades at the regular school. And because the schools were separate, it was on me to coordinate the schedules. When I was in the 8th grade, my schedule worked out so that my regular classes started in the afternoon around 2 p.m. So in the morning, usually I would be in the music school. And twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had about 45-minute break to make it from the music school to the regular school. At least this is how my schedule worked out. The schools were 1 mile apart. It didn't look so bad, but the last class at the music school on those days was the piano lesson with my piano teacher, Jana. Jana was a short, middle-aged woman, very energetic, with short, disheveled, blonde haircut, always in turtleneck with her sleeves rolled up. She was known for her short temper. She would often get angry, yell at us. On occasion, she would throw music sheets around the classroom. And sometimes she would not let us go home, but rather send us to a separate piano classroom where we were supposed to practice until we reached the results that make her satisfied. She didn't care about the schedules. So every Tuesday and Thursday, heading into the piano classroom, I was praying that my class starts and ends on time. I was especially stressed because on those days in my regular school, the first class was the physics with our teacher, Vladimir. Vladimir was a 50-year-old man, skinny, a chain smoker with a low, very strict voice, and he was known for his bad temper. He was very strict, extremely harsh grader, unpredictable mood, and the school was full of urban legends of him giving bad grades left and right. I was so afraid of him that in every class, I was afraid to look him in the eyes, and I was just looking into my at my desk and praying that he doesn't call on me. So this 45-minute break, because of the unpredictable piano teacher schedule, was never really 45 minutes. Oftentimes it was half an hour or less, and many times I cut it really short. And that year, I developed this particular style of walking, which I have until this day, which I can only compare to Olympic race walking. When you keep your upper body very still, your knees are straight, and you move your feet as fast as you can and shift your hips a little bit to help you. This style irritates everybody going on a walk with me to this day. But back in the 8th grade, it saved my ass many times. Until one day in March, by the time my piano teacher, Jana, let me go, it was less than 15 minutes left until my physics class. I knew I'm not going to make it, but I decided to run for it. This time I didn't race walk, I ran. It was early spring in my hometown in Russia, so the streets were covered with this dirty, melting snow. And as I was running, I felt these droplets of cold dirt landing on my light blue jeans, but I didn't care about anything in the world. I just wanted to make it on time to the school. When I reached the school, it was dead quiet because the classes has begun. I ran up the stairs to the second floor. I knocked on the room and I opened it slightly, holding my breath with my heart pounding. And I asked the usual, "I'm very sorry for being late. May I please come in?" Vladimir's face was not beaming with happiness. He silently looked up at me and asked, "Okay, what's your name?" I said my name, and instead of saying anything that I expected to say or allowing me to come in, he looked at my classmates and said, "Well, let's test her, shall we?" And he told me I can only come in after I recite the definition of the ampere that we just covered in class 2 days before on a Tuesday. And standing in this doorway, panting from running, with a backpack in one hand, with my coat in another hand, jeans covered in dirt, and my classmates staring at me, I was trying to remember the definition that I didn't study for. I remember the constant current. I remember two conductors in vacuum, 1 meter apart, interact with a force, and I couldn't remember the magnitude. Vladimir waited and said, "Well, that's an F, and you may come in and take your seat." And burning from this humiliation and getting my first F in my entire life, I quietly walked in, I sat down, and my mind started racing because my annual grade was averaging to be B with this F grade in my record. And I was trying to figure out how to save my annual grade. Vladimir had a rule, the homework rule. If you solve 5 extra problems and bring them and submit with solutions, you can earn extra credit. You can earn extra A grade for every 5 problems you submit. So for the rest of the class, I was just calculating how many sets of 5 problems I need to bring in and submit to bring my average back to A that I was working for so hard for the past few months. But as I got home this night and over the next few days, I just felt like this would not make it even for me. I needed a real comeback. So I thought I'm going to spend the upcoming spring break studying and solving so many problems that Vladimir never seen in his entire life before. And that's what I did. I spent the entire spring break not having fun outside, not watching a minute of TV. I was studying from morning till evening until by the end of the week, I had 6 notepads with a total of 360 problems in them. And when I came back to my first physics class after the break, I waited anxiously until the end of the class. I raised my hand, I asked if I can submit the problems, and I passed on the 6 notepads. He was surprised. He said he's never seen that many problems brought to him before, but it didn't feel like this comeback I was dreaming about. Some of my classmates were impressed, the others were already packing up to go to their next class. He was already in a good mood, the teacher, before I submitted the questions, so it didn't feel like it made it really even for me for the humiliation I experienced before. But my annual grade became an A, And in just a few weeks after that incident, everything changed for me because Vladimir only taught through the 8th grade. So I never had to deal with him for the rest of my school years. And my piano teacher, Jana, after spending 6 years with me, unexpectedly married someone in France and left the country. So that stressful part was also gone for me. But what didn't change since is that this definition of the ampere, like a tattoo on my brain, is to this day still with me. And when a life introduces me to somebody with a PhD in physics, I just cannot deny myself in pleasure of asking, "Oh, so you have a degree in physics? Hmm. Why don't we test you, shall we? Do you remember the definition of the ampere?" And just observing a PhD from MIT or Stanford struggling for a few minutes in front of me and sometimes reaching for the phone makes that offended child nerd in my soul feel a little better. That's it. Thank you.
Very nice.
I definitely couldn't recite the definition of anything at all from my physics classes, let alone the definition of an ampere.
You took a physics class?
Yeah.
Because I didn't.
I actually took a class in college called Physics for Poets. That's the science requirement that I filled out there. Yeah.
Pinky up.
Yeah. Didn't do very well.
Was it like logic? Do you know that philosophy class, logic?
No,
I'm
it wasn't
sorry.
like that. It was like remedial physics.
You're talking about physics, and I went to philosophy. Pardon.
I know more about philosophy than physics as well. So
Marina, do you have anything that you want to tell the folks about? Anything you want to plug?
No, nothing at all. I'm just glad to be back. Thank you for inviting me. For me, it's been a long break with storytelling, so I'm extremely grateful to you guys. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And you're speed walking. I mean, I feel like it's a major asset in New York City. I don't know how people do in San Francisco, but I mean, in New York, like
I don't have a car, so that's what I do. I never own a car. I just walk everywhere very fast. So
yeah. Sounds like
so you're the person people are driving by going, "What is she?"
Yeah, I feel like that story really worked out well for you in a lot of ways. All right, thanks, Marina.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if knowing that definition ever got you laid. That's really what I would like to know.
it did. It did.
Yes.
Oh, it's all worth it.
All right, so yeah, put it in the chat for everybody then. So I mean, we can all use it, right? I mean, I'm married, but y'all can use it. All right, thanks, Marina. Let's see. Okay, there I am. All right, keeping the show moving. Our next guest is an actor and a storyteller based in New York City. She is Kimmy Anne Dunn. She is a big fan of popcorn and friendship. And if she could go back in time, Kimmy would advise her teen self to always say yes to ice cream. I think we all would do that. Hug her family more, and to fully commit to finishing the Twilight series. I don't know if I would do that one, but folks, please welcome Kimmy Anne Dunn.
Thank you, Will. Hey guys. Growing up, I always had a very weak bladder. I didn't really wet the bed, but I did wet my life. But in elementary school, kids are doing all kinds of weird shit. They're eating plastic bags, getting high off of permanent markers, they're shoving crayons up their ass. So who cares if I can't make it to the bathroom sometimes? It's okay, I'm a kid, I'll grow out of it. And I go through elementary school, and I go through middle school, and now I'm in high school, and I'm still wetting my life. And miraculously, up until this point, I've managed to keep my secret under wraps, so that by the 9th grade, the only people who know about my soggy bottom affairs are my parents, my pediatrician, and my best friend, Corey. And there was no keeping it from Corey, really, because we did everything together. And she loved me in spite of my PP problems. And she dutifully and lovingly kept my secret without judgment. But by our freshman year, Corey was just so much more developed than I was. She had everything that I didn't. She had curves, she had Cosmo, she had confidence, and she had a very impressive pelvic floor. So one Saturday morning, Corey and I were watching America's Next Top Model, our favorite show. And our Lord and Savior, Tyra Banks, was teaching us about the invaluable skill, the smize. In 2011, smizing was all the rage. So we spent all morning practicing in the mirror, practicing our smize. And I knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to be good at it. I just focused too hard. So like after 5 minutes of practicing my smize, I just looked and felt constipated. But Corey was a natural. I mean, she was already the most beautiful girl I had ever seen, but this was going to elevate her Facebook presence dramatically. So what Corey needed now was a new Facebook profile picture to show off her gift. And accepting once and for all that I would forever be the Nigel Barker to her Tyra Banks, I agreed to be her photographer on this shoot. So we scouted locations in our hometown and we decided that Gem Lakes would be the best location for the shoot. I got photos of Corey looking off into the distance. I got photos of Corey dipping her toe in the water, sultry, looking at the camera, very sultry. And I got photos of her, looking at her shoulder while her strap fell down just a little. And finally, we got the perfect shot. And it was inviting, it was sexy, it was totally PG-13, and we were done. But we had 2 hours until her dad picked us up from the lake. So Corey decided to call our friend Caleb, who lived in the neighborhood, to see if he wanted to hang out. And when she got off the phone with Caleb, she told me that he was hanging out with half the boys' soccer team, and they were headed over there now to hang out with us at Gem Lakes on a Saturday. And Corey's a burgeoning model who knows how to smize, and I'm a wonderkin photographer, and I'm wearing a stylish romper. So this is the best Saturday I've had since the town craft fair. So it's pretty exciting. So the boys come over, and we're all sitting on the dock in a circle, and we're talking about soccer, and we're talking about our teachers and who's dating who. And Mateo Erickson is so flirting with Corey, which is so fun. And I know it would be fun because I have a really big crush on him. So I know. and everyone's laughing at Corey's jokes. And now Mateo's tickling Corey, which is so playful and cute. I'm so here for it. But I'm actually getting a little bit jealous because no one's flirting with me or talking to me or even looking at me. And now that I realize it, I'm sitting outside of the circle and I'm about to say something, but then Mateo stops and he asks if he can look at the pictures on my camera. And Corey makes sure to act embarrassed before saying, okay, Kimmy, yeah, you can show him. So the boys crowd around me and my Nokia, and I'm a bit nervous and I'm flushing because it's the closest I've been to 6 boys at once, which feels like a feat for Nigel Barkers everywhere. So we're scrolling through and everyone's oohing and eyeing and saying that the photos look so good and Corey looks so good. And now I'm really jealous because don't they know that you can't have a good photo without a great photographer? And I'm so pissed and I'm getting flustered and I'm about to say something. But then we get to this photo of Corey mid-sneeze. Her eyes are half closed and her lips are kind of pursed. And it's kind of like if Liza Minnelli was sniffing egg salad. Imagine that. And all the boys have a good-natured chuckle, but I lose my mind. And this is the first time in 7 years that I had seen Corey look or be anything short of perfect. And at first she sort of laughs with me to soften the blow, but then I'm just laughing at her. And I laugh big and hard. And I laugh until it's so inappropriate for me to still be guffawing at my friend's expense. And I chortle so hard until there are tears running down my eyes. And And then everyone's looking at me. Everyone's looking at me for once and not Corey. They're looking at me and now they're looking at my shoes. Why are they looking at my shoes? And I look down to meet their eye line and I see the puddle expanding around my sandals. And now that I've stopped laughing, all that can be heard is the sound of my urine hitting the wood panels on the dock. And it's a strong, unstoppable stream because I'm wearing that romper, which I borrowed from Corey. So it just sort of jets out of my right leg hole. And I'm looking down at my man-made pool and I think, Kegel! But it's too late. So I do the next best thing and I take my stream with me to the edge of the dock and I jump. I come up for air and I face my witnesses, some staring at me, some staring at my pee-pee puddle, and then I just swim to shore. I get out, romper soggy, hair dripping, life canceled, and I run up the hill and get into Corey's dad's Camry, and I just sit there for what feels like an eternity waiting for Corey to come up the hill. Finally, I hear the laughter of teenage boys, and I know it's at my expense. And I cover my face with my hands, and I just hope that they won't see me. They won't look at me. And I hear Corey's flip-flops smack against her heels as she comes up to the car. And I flush with guilt for laughing at this photo, which really wasn't that bad, if I'm being honest. And never in our 7 years of friendship had Corey ever made fun of my inability to make it to the bathroom, ever. And trust me, there was ample opportunity to do so. I had gone everywhere. I had gone in the girls' gym room, her bed, her dad's car, that hotel in Hilton Head that one time, Six Flags, everywhere. Not once. And I see my tombstone flash before my eyes, and on it, it reads, Kimmy Dunn, weaker bladder, weakest friend. And I hear her come into the car, and I can hear her soft breath, and I can smell her Victoria's Secret Lust perfume, and my hands are still over my eyes, and I'm crying, and she has to peel my fingers off my eyes, and I look up at her, but I can't say anything. And for once, my eyes say what my mouth cannot. I frown with my eyes. I frized. And she holds my hands in hers, and she just looks at me, and she knows with my look that I'm saying, I am so sorry for laughing at your flawless face, and I hate myself, but I do love you, and I will literally never recover from this. But Corey was always much more developed than I, especially at 14. So she just held my hands in hers and smiled at me and said, you can just keep the romper. Thank you.
Oh
Very
man,
nice.
that was a roller coaster.
It was.
I could pee now. I'm so nervous.
That is one thing I like about the story. You never say if it's ever got resolved. It's like, who knows? Beat herself.
Don't make her laugh too
Yeah.
hard.
You know, I'm just going to leave that up to everyone to think
Why
about.
not? Fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, there is a I will say it, I've only been storytelling since 2019, but the number of almost or actually peeing myself stories I've heard, I'm just oh wow, it's like it's a subgenre, and yet no two are the same.
It's certainly memorable when it happens. It'll stick with you.
I bet. Yeah.
Kimmy, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to tell our audience about?
Nope, nothing. My parents are here and my siblings are here, so I want to say hi to all of them.
Oh, great.
Hey, Kimmy.
All right, well, great. I mean, this is I want to just say it's Kimmy's first storytelling show, and I think she did an amazing job. I mean, high standard for anybody else who comes on the show and does their first story ever. So great job.
Thanks,
Thanks so much for
guys.
doing it. All right, let's keep this show moving along. Next up, we have Kelli Dunham. Kelli is everyone's favorite ex-nun, non-binary storytelling comic. She taught herself stop motion animation this summer, so you can see her Lego interpretations of bodily fluids on the B train and whitewater rafting while genderqueer on her YouTube channel. Kelli, please take it away.
Hello. I also have a body fluid on peeing myself on the B train story. And I have friends who are like, oh my God, I feel so embarrassed for you to tell that story. And I was like, why? Because knowing that I could tell that story actually is what got me through that story. So, all right. So this is a brand new, I actually just started telling this story socially, just told it to my girlfriend like 20 minutes ago. So brand new story. Even though it happened a long time ago. So I'm the youngest child of 7 from a Wisconsin farm family. I arrived on the scene 14 months, whoops, after my older sister, and double whoops, 14 months after my mom had her tubes tied. At that time, they were just clamping the fallopian tubes as a form of what was supposed to be permanent sterilization, although now they actually sever them. I was apparently so active in her womb, my mom said, I knew we were having a boy or heaven help us girl, which I think heaven help us girl is kind of my gender. My family had more kids than they needed or probably wanted, and realistically more than they had the emotional energy to deal with. I mean, 7, that's a lot, right? That's practically an orphanage. Anyways, so, if you have at the end of your child train, you have a very, very accidental child, what you need is such a situation as you need this like happy-go-lucky kid who greets, accidental digit loss from farm machinery with a cheery, oh, it's okay, I've got another thumb. But that was not what my parents got. I emerged fully formed from the womb, a sensitive, opinionated coastal queer. My parents wore, that book, the 70s classic, The Strong-Willed Child? My parents wore out their copy of that, mostly on my ass. When it rained, you know how the worms come out of their holes and they're all over the pavement? When it rained, I would miss the bus to school because I was picking up the worms and trying to save them all. And then my dad would have to take me to school on the tractor. You know how long it takes to go 5 miles on a tractor? A really, really long time. So, and then I grew into the exact teenage version of a kid who refused to get on the bus because a single worm might get run over. I followed my mom around the house. Can we be vegetarians? Which my mom was like, it was the 70s in Wisconsin. She was like, what would we eat? Can we save the whales? I remember one time I bugged her so much. I was like, what are we going to do about the harp seals? What are we going to do about the harp seals? And the lady was just trying to clean the damn house. And she was like, I'll tell you what we're going to do about the harp seals. Nobody in this family will ever have enough money for a fur coat, which I actually think was actually kind of a great response. My sister, in contrast, was a very kind, obedient, non-obnoxious child. And so when she became obsessed with teen idol Sean Cassidy, and even though my dad would tease her about Sean Cassidy and call him Sean Casserole, which is a Midwestern joke if I've ever heard it, my dad agreed to take her to a Sean Cassidy concert. My mom was working at the time that the concert happened, so I had to come along. I mean, by rule, Wisconsin standards, I was way past the age to stay home alone. I was like, 13, but because the last time they left me at home, they'd returned home to find me parading up and down the driveway with a sign that said, a woman without a fish is like a man, or a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. I had seen that written somewhere. And my mom was like, what are you doing? Protesting? And I was like, I guess I'm protesting. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to go along to the Sean Cassidy concert. And I was really amazed by my dad, the patience my dad exhibited to be with like 5,000 screaming teenagers. I mean, now I realize it's because he had a lot of Jack Daniels in his Coke, and he was probably having an okay time, but still. And when I slid into my teeny bopper phase, I knew, and my obsession was country music legend Kenny Rogers. When Kenny Rogers was coming to Wisconsin State Fair, I knew I'm not the kind of kid somebody wanted to take to a concert, right? Like I was not the kind of kid you'd be like, oh, this will be a great experience. I knew better than that. And so I figured like the best way to get there was just to arrange the whole thing myself without telling my parents. So my dad had in the barn this bag of hybrid kidney beans that he had been developing over years and years and years. Now he claimed my mom cooked him bean soup every Saturday night for dinner. That was what we had with these special beans. And he claimed that it was less gassy, that these beans made you less gassy. But based on his behavior, which, you know, he would like when we were riding around in our Ford LTD station wagon, he would fart and then lock all the windows so we couldn't roll the windows down. I would say that that was just in his head that those beans were actually less gassy. Anyway, they were, I guess, pretty good beans. And so I divvied them up into some just like containers made out of aluminum foil. And I made a sign that said, beans aren't mean ink. And I mean, beans and mean do rhyme. That's true. And so I just pedaled around on my bike to my neighbors, you know, to our neighbors, and knocked on the door, asked them if they wanted to buy beans. They were so glad that I didn't have like a petition for some, you know, something about cruelty against animals, an anti-animal cruelty petition, that they gladly bought whatever I had to sell them. And then the problem was the Wisconsin State Fair was 45 minutes by car away from where we lived. And so what I did, and I work with teenagers, and I will ask that, you know, I will say, never ever do this, any teenager who's listening to this. I asked a teenage boy, a distant neighbor whose family I didn't even know, if he could borrow his dad's pickup truck and drive me the 45 minutes to the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds. I'll also add that you can get a farm license in Wisconsin and many other farm states when you're 12. He probably wasn't even licensed to drive on the road. But he drove me there and I bought my ticket and they let me into the fairgrounds by myself at 13. It was 1979. I was wearing a straw colored cowboy hat with an ERA now button on the brim, a green plaid Western style shirt with snaps and a lot of artificial flowers, and Sears Toughskins Husky Boy jeans. I also had a spiral perm. It was 1979 and I looked great. So now whenever I see Kenny Rogers is coming to town, or when he died when I was a patient in the COVID ICU, I'm reminded that my teenage struggles, if nothing else, they helped me develop creativity, something that now helps me every day. Thank you.
Oh man, very nice. I've always been somewhat fascinated with the farm states and what social life must be like, especially for a high schooler.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of it. I mean, there was so much actual fun stuff to do, I have to say. Like, I remember, I mean, all the banana stuff. Like, I can remember swinging out of the haymow and like letting ourselves drop in the huge pile of cow shit. Like, you know, what, I mean, actually, I don't think probably kids are doing that in 2021, but I mean, that's a unique human experience, right? Like that's not something that I ever do now living in Brooklyn. So I feel like it's an interesting way to have a childhood if you can survive it. You know?
Right. Yeah. The comment you made about, you know, losing digits, I feel like that's fairly common on a farm.
Anytime I'm with my family, they're always telling me, like my first 5 years of comedy, it was all just about my family, and a lot was about, you know, like farm and losing digits and stuff. And so anytime I see my cousin, he's like, oh, I got this hilarious story to tell you. You know, it's always like hilarious, meaning super gruesome and not something I would probably talk about on stage. Yeah.
Like, well, don't need that anymore.
Kelly, do you have anything that you want to plug?
Yeah. Let me see, put it in. Do you have the capacity to put it in?
We can post it into the Twitch chat.
Totally. Hold on, let me take care of that.
Yeah, that's my YouTube channel. So if you want to hear my peeing myself as performed by Lego minifigures, or a story about playing basketball when I was a nun. Anyway, all those are stop motion animations I made in the last 6 months. So. Awesome.
I taught myself to code this summer, but I feel like you would think that would be more useful, but it sounds like you're getting more use out of your animation than I am with my coding. I'm not doing anything. All right. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh,
And before we go on to our next storyteller, I just want to take a few moments to tell you all a little bit more about our show. Awkward Teenage Years, if you want to follow us on either Facebook or Instagram, we're at Awkward Teenage Years. On Twitter, we are at Awk Teen Years. You know that you can't have a long username on Twitter, so that really kind of screwed us on our branding there. But we're on Twitter too. We haven't been tweeting a lot, but we're going to start tweeting more. So find us, check us out. If you have an awkward teen story that you would like to tell on our show, send us a pitch at awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com. A couple of the stories that we've had tonight came from our pitch emails, and we'd love to have some new storytellers come on and tell us about your awkward teenage years. And if you want to see videos of our past shows, you can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Awkward Teenage Years and you'll find us. We don't have enough content yet to get our own fancy custom URL. But if you go there and you follow us, then maybe soon we will. I don't know. So that's our little PSA about our show, and we hope to see you on the social media sometime soon. All right, keeping the show moving. Our next storyteller is another co-creator of this show. He is an actor and a storyteller. You've seen him at The Moth and the Nights of Our Lives at the Magnet Theater. He's also the author and performer of 2 solo shows, including his most recent one, which is called A Public-Private Prayer, which hopefully you'll get to see live in person if you're in New York City sometime this year. We hope, we think, I don't know. Well, who knows? Maybe though. Please give a warm digital welcome to my buddy, Grant Bowen.
Hey, Will, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm getting those solo show plugs in early because who knows when you'll see them, but hopefully you'll see them. Who knows? My junior year of high school got off to kind of a rough start because I went through a really painful breakup from my first girlfriend, Emmy. The thing is, we were still trying to be friends at school. So it was the kind of situation where I was like, oh, yeah, it was a mutual breakup when really she dumped me. The kind where I was like at school pretending everything's fine. And then I would go home and sob in front of my parents. It was not, and I was dealing with a lot of just feelings of just not being good enough. But luckily some things came along to kind of take my mind off of it. And that is thanks in part to my English teacher, Mrs. Beam. Mrs. Beam was younger, I'd say around early 30s. She had this short, choppy blonde hair and everything. And she had this bright, bubbly, engaging personality that made her really easy to listen to in class. Where she'd go the extra mile is that she would open the floor to discussions with us with applying what we were learning and how we could use it in our lives and in the world around us. And keep in mind, this was still fresh in the post 9/11 years. So we were talking about a lot of big ideas in that class. I really liked taking Mrs. Beam's class, so much so that when she stood up one day and told us that she was starting the debate team and looking for new members, I thought to myself, I've never thought twice about debate, but why not? So I signed up. It was me and about 5 other kids in this class. We'd meet after school. Mrs. Beam would, teach us the ins and outs of working in our time limits and taking notes and taking a firm stance on an argument, whether you actually agreed with it or not, and committing to it. And then, we'd have our debates on the weekends at the local college campuses. She'd be there cheering us on every time. And then afterwards, she'd take us out to eat somewhere like Panera Bread. And keep in mind, when you're growing up in a fast food heavy hometown like mine, Panera Bread felt fancy. It was like, ooh, they're letting the Taco Bell people into Panera Bread. I'm underdressed. But then she would get us a booth and she'd go around and ask us about our personal lives. She'd want to know about what we were doing and what we were thinking about our futures and everything. So not only was she passionate about what she was teaching and sharing new skills with us, but she was taking an interest in us personally. And I can count on one hand the number of teachers that were doing that for me at the time. Now, it was while I was in Mrs. Beam's class that I met my second girlfriend, Ashley. Ashley was, like most of the girls I would date in life, a theater kid. So she was shorter, she was a brunette, and she had mastered the art of acting blasé, just like, whatever, I don't care. And that made her attractive to me because that was a skill I really wanted to get better at. And so we started spending more time with each other. And soon we found out that we had two interests in common: school plays and making out. We would sit together in rehearsals after school, and then we'd find empty hallways and make out in them. And then I would drive her home, and then we'd make out more in the car. And then sometimes we'd even hang out at her house, where we would then proceed with the same activity. It was great. And the more time we spent with each other, the more I started to think maybe this could be like a personal connection too. Now, Ashley had told me when we started dating that she had to break up with her last boyfriend because he left school to join the Army. 2 months after we've been dating, we're at lunch, we're sitting in the cafeteria, kids are buzzing about, we're catching up on gossip, and then she casually slips in that he may be coming back from basic training soon. And she goes, wherever he goes next, I hope he doesn't come back here, like to this town. And I was just like, oh, why? And she goes, well, if he comes back here, then I might have to choose between the two of you. And I was like, oh, okay, but that's not a problem, because if you had to, you would choose me, right? And in that same blasé attitude that she had mastered, she just looked at me and went, I don't know. And then the bell rang, and everyone's scattering to go back to class. I'm trying to walk along with her for a bit, and I'm just going like, wait, what do you mean? And then she splits off to go to her class, and I have to keep going to my class. And I was just stunned. And the thoughts were just piling up. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? We've been spending all this time together. And then there was the rejection. Like, not only had I lost my first girlfriend, who I actually fell in love with, but now here was my second girlfriend telling me that I would probably lose out to a guy I'd never even met. And maybe I just wasn't going to be good enough for anybody. And I just started to crumble on the inside. And eventually I started to crumble on the outside. And unfortunately, that was while I was sitting in Mrs. Beam's class. She's starting the lesson. I'm sitting off to the side, trying desperately not to look like I'm about to cry. And she notices. And she plays it very cool and casual. She goes, hey, you know what, everyone, just turn to this page, read this section. I'm going to be right back. Grant, do you want to step out into the hall with me? And so I go out into the hall with her, and she looks at me, and like many adults at this point in my life went, what is wrong? So it just all comes tumbling out. I tell her about Ashley. I tell her about the boyfriend. I tell her about what had just happened in the cafeteria and how I was feeling. And I'm sobbing so much, I can't believe she understands what I'm saying. And then when I'm done, there's a pause, and she just kind of stands for a second and just goes and puts her hand on my shoulder and goes, it was very inappropriate for her to tell you that, and you deserve better. Now, go to the boys' room, take all the time you need. When you're ready, wash your face and come back to class. And she went back into the classroom. For all the time I had spent in Mrs. Beam's class and going to the debates with her, that is the most important thing she ever did for me. To see me at what at the time was one of my lowest moments and told me that I was worth more. That was on a Friday. On Monday, I came back to school and broke up with Ashley. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Nice. A lot of good teacher stories this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. No, yeah, it's crazy. The more we've been doing this, the more memories keep coming back to me about these little moments I had that I had not thought about for like years. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, right, that happened. Someone consoled me while I cried like a crazy person.
That's such a sweet story, though.
It's
sad, but God, what a bitch. Sorry, but what a bitch to be like, maybe, bye.
It's like, no, and she didn't take me breaking up with her well either. So I'm like, oh, now you care. Like,
Did the guy come back, the army guy?
I never found out. I haven't seen her in like years, so who knows?
Ashley.
We were kids, I'm sure. Ashley, if you're watching this, we were kids. I'm sure you're fine now. Don't.
Grant, do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Not much, really. Just kind of waiting out the cold, like everybody else. Everyone, keep warm, stay safe out there. Keep wearing your masks. I'm really hoping we're hitting the home stretch on this thing, so we'll see.
All right. Well, we'll take this opportunity then to do a little plug about a couple of theaters that we support here. So, Grant, I'll let you take it away here.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. So this is the section of the show that we like to call the PSA section. Because we, as you can imagine, there's a lot of arts organizations out there that are really struggling to get through this time right now. Live performance has not come back in this city. So we wanted to draw your attention to a couple of theaters and theater companies that mean something to us. First of all, we wanted to talk about Frigid, New York. They are an off-Broadway theater company here in like the East Village in New York. We first did this show at the Frigid Festival back in February of last year. So it was technically the last nice thing that happened in regards to this show for a while. But we had a great run. They're a great company, very supportive of artists. So you can follow them at Frigid New York on social media. And they have a Patreon page where you can donate on a rolling monthly basis with a lot of cool rewards on there. I'm a patron. They're great. Go to frigid.nyc/donations to find one way to donate, or go to patreon.com/frigidnewyork. We also want to draw your attention to the Magnet Theater. They are an improv theater, an improv school here in New York. They are one of the only places around here that you can take storytelling classes. Me and Will and Marina both took classes from Adam Wade there. I like to say every show, if it weren't for Frigid New York, this show wouldn't exist. If it weren't for the Magnet Theater, some of us may not even be storytellers. So we really owe them a big, big, big debt of gratitude. They are still doing live shows and live streams during all this. You can check out their Twitch channel at twitch.tv/themagnettheater. You can follow them at Magnet Theater on social media. And if you would like to donate, go to their website, magnettheater.com, go to the virtual shows banner where you can buy a ticket to any of the shows they are live streaming on the Twitch channel. It would really, really help them out a lot, help them keep the doors open once all this is over. And that's where we'd like to draw your attention. Thank you all for watching.
All right. Thanks, Grant. And now we're here. We're at our final storyteller for the evening. Our last storyteller is Christiana Jackson. She is a comedian and storyteller based in New York City. She's a lover of sneakers and cigars and a horny goofball is how she self-describes. And she recently appeared on everybody's favorite television show, Cash Cab, and did pretty well on it too. So please give a warm welcome to Christiana Jackson.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Give it up to Will. What a soothing PBS voice. If anyone out there is from PBS, hire this man. Holy shit, man. It's so nice and gentle and soothing. Grant, shout out to Grant. I'm a comedian. I'm not a storyteller. I'd say I'm a woman who has stories. And Grant, I do love your fancy, are you in a coat closet, a linen closet? Anyway, it looks great. Everyone looks great. That shelving is a flex. Holy shit, it's so organized. It's got baskets. Anyway, to the story. Kelli earlier was talking about less gassy beans. Send them down. I'm in Mexico right now. I could use some less gassy beans myself. I am joining you from Mexico. I love Mexico because I love the ocean. And that's because I learned in middle school not to fuck with pools. Now, listen, I understand this is supposed to be awkward teen years. And if you have a problem with the fact that it's from middle school, sue Grant, okay? He's the reason I'm on the show. So take it up with Grant if you're like, wait a second, she's a couple years shy. Anyway, so starting from the beginning, I come from a place called Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Has anyone ever heard of Phillipsburg? That's about right, okay? There's no reason to know of Phillipsburg, New Jersey. But if you ever want to visit, just look for the part of the map that's labeled the Hill People. I don't say that I come from a town. I say that I come from parts. Like, you guys ever watch an old movie and there's like a wild-eyed white dude and he's like, you're not welcome round these parts? Those are the kind of parts that I come from. And as you can imagine, I was not very welcome there. Once again, going back to Kelli, Farmville, we had Future Farmers of America, man. We had that. I had a neighbor named Bubba who was named that after his father. I had teachers who chewed tobacco. It was a lot. It was a lot. I did not belong there. And they weren't happy to have me. Grant was talking about teachers. A couple people talking about teachers. I did have one teacher, though, one of my favorites. I loved and appreciated her. My first grade teacher, BJ Hornet. Now, I didn't know those were her first two initials. We just called her Mrs. Hornet. And since we were in first grade, we had no idea that it sounded like Hornet. But now that I'm an adult, missed opportunity. How's your name BJ Hornet and you were a first grade teacher, man? It was the 80s. It was a different time. You know, porn wasn't what it is now. Now she'd have an OnlyFans. But anyway, so shout out to BJ Hornet if she's out there. We will fast forward. Don't worry. I'm not going to talk about every aspect of my life, but just so you get a sense of the kind of people I grew up with. So let's fast forward to middle school. I was a very poor town. We didn't have much in my school. I learned to type on typewriters, okay? That's how poor my fucking school was. But we had a pool. I have no idea who decided to give all these toothless, poor white people a pool, but we had a pool in my middle school. So that was required in gym. That's what we did in the winter. It was like, okay, winter's here. You're gonna take swimming. I was excited. I actually already knew how to swim. I took classes at the Y, bucking the stereotype. So I was in for it. I was like, great, we're gonna have swimming. I love the water. I'm a water sign. Fantastic. Only problem was I hadn't been swimming in a while. So my bathing suit was from when I was 9 and I was now 11. And I developed pretty fast. I'd say probably about B cups at 11 years old. I didn't know because I was just growing. I didn't compare, but I'm just letting you know. So the bathing suit was, you know how sometimes clothes fit, but they don't fit right. It was like that. And no one had asked, like my mom didn't check beforehand. Whatever, it's swim day, cool. I go to swim class, fool around, we're all swimming, cool, whatever, right? I'm getting out of the pool. Now, this is where I learned very quickly, it's not a good idea to be an arrogant person, okay? One of my role models growing up was Miss Piggy, so I didn't take any shit from any men. And someone tried to cut me off in the pool, and I cut in front of him, think like, you know, Miss Piggy energy, like, fuck this dude. Cut in front of him to get back at me. He snapped back my bathing suit. I was like, I can walk that off. This is not a big deal. So I'm walking it off, and a lot of people are looking at me, a lot. And so I I just thought, whatever, who cares? And then someone, after walking around for a few minutes, someone finally told me that my 6th grade B cup titty was out. I had no clue. I don't know why I couldn't feel it. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't aware of my body at the time. And it was out. Like, it was out. I looked and now my tit's out. You know what's fucked up though, that I just realized listening to all the stories? I still didn't get dick till I was 18. I mean, what the fuck? I'm flashing everyone, and everyone's like, she's too much. I can't handle, she's too fast. Anyway, so it was super embarrassing, of course. And then because I am a Cancer, and because we are quite petty and vengeful, I didn't take swimming for the rest of middle school. The pool had nothing to do with it, but I just vowed revenge. I will never swim in this middle school again. And I didn't, and I did risk failing gym, but it was worth it. Anyway, so that was incident number 1. This is a 2-part story of why I don't fuck with pools. Then, so I didn't swim in my middle school very much, but we had town pools. My town was very racist. I couldn't get into all of them. That's a whole nother set of sad stories, but I don't want to bring down this virtual room. So, but one of them that I could go to, Lopat Pool, the neighboring town, cool. Would go there a couple times in summer, it was great. So like I said, I knew how to swim. I was a good swimmer, very comfortable in the water. And then one day I went down the slide on the deep end. Bad idea. Arrogance, once again, arrogance. Too arrogant. I'd never done it before. I was like, today's the day. No, it was not. I shot down the slide and immediately sunk. I mean, I just plummeted to the bottom of the pool. And then I tried, I was kind of, it shocked me, like, oh, I'm in the bottom of the pool. So I tried swimming up for about 30 to 45 seconds. And then I just stopped. I don't know what was going on in my life at 11, 12 years old that I just gave up on it. But I was done. I had rationalized in my head. I was like, okay, now I can see why my mom is mad that I was starting to gain weight, because now I'm gonna die at the bottom of the pool. That's what I accepted my karmic fate. Like, yes, of course, I'm fat people don't belong in pools. I'm gonna die at the bottom. And I just sat there and waited for death, pretty patiently. There's a very Zen mindset for a 12-year-old, but I just sat there and waited. I'm like, I'm gonna die at some point, it's fine. Then next thing I know, a hand plunges through the water, right? To rescue me. And I'm like, who is this? Who could this be? Is it a lifeguard? Is it a friend, an adventurous friend? No, it was the hand of BJ Hornet. BJ Hornet plunged through the water to save me and bring me back to life. Shout out BJ if you're out there. Big fan of your name and of the act. And that is why I am here with you guys today. So thank you guys so much, but don't fuck with pools.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Strong agree on not fucking with pools. I remember being, I don't know, like probably 8 or something like that, and being forced to join the swim team at a local pool. And then like I was this really, really like skinny little frail kid, and they made me put a Speedo on, and I like didn't want to come out of the locker room with the Speedo. I was just like, it's too embarrassing. I'm too small and weak. And I just refused to come out. And I never joined the team and never went swimming at that pool again. That was it.
Oh, we had opposite problems. You were too skinny, I was too fat. We had opposite problems. If anyone was a regular pool size, chime in, right?
They don't have any traumatic stories. They just went swimming.
I do hang out. I'm in a luxury building. I do hang out in that pool. It's not a real pool though. And it's great. And I'm alone. So it's just literally a big titty Black woman laughing at her own jokes in the pool alone. I look insane. I look completely insane. People come out and they're like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going back inside.
Why are you alone in Mexico? Was it just like you needed to get away, or?
Oh yeah, well I live alone in New York, so I was like, where do I want to feel less depressed during the pandemic? sun helps. And I mean, I'm not alone all day. You know what I'm saying? I'm only alone during the day. The night times are, that doorman is judging me.
You find things to do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I will tell. So I know you're talking about like New Jersey and everything, but I'm from Alabama originally. So
I'm from the Alabama of New Jersey.
oh, there you go. It's like some of those descriptions. Like I'm like, I'm not from that town, but I know where that town is.
Oh yeah. I grew up around rebel flags in New Jersey.
Ooh.
Northern Jersey. There's no connection. Everyone's like descendants from Eastern Europe. I'm like, you guys weren't even here when this happened.
And also, I dated somebody from Phillipsburg, and also I remember so many sex offenders. Like it was the epicenter of sex offenders as well. Like
that makes sense.
If you opened up the little sex offenders app, her entire street was full of, and we know sex offenders, some of it's like over policing and all that bullshit, but it was so great. Yeah.
I think that's valid. I mean, that's insane. But you date someone from Phillipsburg? God bless you.
Yeah.
You have a drinking problem? Did they have a drinking problem?
Not a drinking problem, but definitely a drug problem for sure.
We've advanced.
Christiana, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on a podcast. It'll launch soon-ish, as soon as I get my theme song. It's called Stout Lusty Wench, so look out for it.
All right.
Can't wait.
That'll be on Apple and Spotify and all this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's our show, folks. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're super excited to have you here, and I'm super excited to be wearing these real pants. And we'll be back. I don't know when, maybe next month, maybe 2 months, sometime soon. And we hope to see you then. So thanks again for coming to see us, and have a great night.